Okay, so back to the grindstone, as John used to say. Okay, so this is how I normally start. We normally start by moving a little bit, and then we'll stand in riding horse for a few minutes. So just this feeling of sinking into the leg. So just feel the heel. So as you come into the foot, it's the heel that really stabilizes you. So the feeling is that you're flowing into the leg, but the strength from the ground, the quality of the ground, that sort of hard stillness is actually growing up your leg from the heel. So you're flowing down and this way, and the ground is flowing up and a little bit this way. So really feel that heel, like it's trying to really dig into the ground. Imagine you're on a wet sand on the beach, and your heel, you're trying to get your heel as deep as possible. And there's always one leg I find that tends to be a little bit reluctant. It's my right leg. So we very much want to split the leg into its two functions. One, something that moves my body, and two, something that supports my body. So at the moment with the heel, we're just looking at the support really. So as I settle onto the leg, I'm supported from the ground. So as the pressure goes onto the heel, something flows up the leg. And then once it gets to here and comes into this complex, the sacrum and the hips, then you can just allow it to bounce you back. So feel that upward flow. Don't move with it until it's got to the Dan Chen, really. So we're moving from the heel. I just allow a bounce. So my leg has to be springy to allow this ground that comes up to throw me back. So I'm sinking into the heel and something comes up the leg, and then I just let it take me. And that's a decision I have to make, because I could quite easily not let it take me. So here and whoo. That's it. And just feel yourself going into the outside edge of the foot a little bit. So it's just more springy. If you can get yourself into the outside edge, so you've got this real sort of bow-legged feeling, then the leg's just more springy there. Yeah, so this upward flow up the leg, I don't want it to bring me up. I just want it to move me this way. So I sink into the heel, something flows up the leg, and I let it take me. Yeah. So we need a definite feeling that the legs are inserting into the hips from the side rather than from underneath. Because if they insert from underneath, then it's always going to take me up. Whereas if I can feel it inserting in the side, then I just get a push here, basically in this direction. So by making sure I'm in the outside edge, we get the springy legs, but we also get the kick back flat rather than up. We don't really want too much of an up element. So the struggle all the time is to stay down. And the visualization for that is just like the really heavy sacrum, like the plum on the end of the plumb line. You can just feel this area heavy, bearing down all the time. Then you'll have less of an inclination to come up. So heel, outside edge, flowing this way, heel, outside edge, kicking up, and this way. So the people that have this best, of course, are the sumo guys. So it's worth watching just to get a flavor. There's a competition at the moment, so. Okay, so now let's just stand in riding horse a little bit. Okay, so just feel the heels digging down into the ground and sort of cutting under like that a little bit. So basically there's an action here, like you're sort of pulling your bum under a little bit. Although that's it, as much as anything, that's in the mind. It's not, you don't want to be too physical about it. You don't want to use force. Yes, if you think of the sacrum comes sort of down. If I'm facing this way, the sacrum sort of like this, and then the coccyx sort of curls under. So there's a natural hook just in the shape of the thing. So if I can get the sacrum that's normally like this, just flatten it out, make it vertical so the tailbone really comes under, then I don't need to think, I don't need to do anything. I don't need to pull my bum under because it's already there. The shape is already there. So just feel the sacrum, just really heavy. And then just feel the strength that you need in the legs just to hold that in place and not let it collapse down. So just really feel the heels. Yeah, so letting go, basically we just need to let go around here. And you just feel how difficult it is. You know, they say that you can only really let go if you can feel yourself being held. Yeah. So you're sort of being held in suspension. And then you can just sort of let go, knowing that what's holding you will keep you safe. Okay, and now let's just, the same thing really, but now just working from the front of the foot. So we were concentrating on the heel, and now just pulling ourselves. So before we were sinking into the heel and getting that rising energy to bounce us back. Now we're pulling from the toes. So if you just lift the heel slightly and just do this with the toes, then you'll pull across. So you sort of fold the toes, but you also fold the leg. So you've got a bend here. In a sense, this is the most important one because it tends to get neglected. And the obvious one is the fold at the knee. So the knee is bending and coming forwards. So I'm pulling with the foot from the front of the foot, from the toes and the ball of the foot. If I don't get this fold here, then when I pull the knee, it will tend to pull me up like this out of this leg. Again, I want to make sure that I'm keeping this heavy. So as I pull, there's a real fold here. And just try and feel that if you just lift the heel, then there's like a natural pull. And you just have to really delay the movement of your weight, almost like you're really trying to savor it. You want to smell it and taste it. So pull. Imagine something's really holding you back. If just feel your inertia, like a stickiness or like an elastic connectivity to this spot, and something real has to happen to pull you out of that. So, ooh. So pulling from the front of the foot. So remember the two activities of the leg. One is it moves you, and one is it supports you. So now I'm getting the movement from the opposite foot, from the one that's supporting me. So this is the empty leg. It's got no weight in it. And then as I flow into it, I just come into the heel because it's the heel that supports me. So I'm pulling from the front of the foot, and as my weight flows in, I just rock onto the heel. So pulling, and so what we're trying to do really is just feel that difference, to separate the front of the foot and the back of the foot and their different functions. I pull. I've got to make sure this folds here, and I'll do that just by really feeling my heavy sacrum dangling down from the skull. So pull, and then just feel yourself going into the heel. Pull, and sinking into the heel. You settle into the heel. So if you like, your spirit is expressed from the front of the foot. So here there's like a spark to catch the ground and yank you a little bit. It's a suddenness. But as you settle into the heel, that's very gradual and slow. Ooh. Yeah, so what makes it difficult is a tendency to move too soon out of the supporting leg. You know, we have to be really aware of where our weight is and of what's actually trying to move it. So what I don't want is to push from here. I want to pull from here. Yeah, so we're just trying to separate yin and yang, like a really clean separation. And then when they work together, they just work together as a much better mechanism. And you can feel it in a person's energy. So when you work, so Nitzan had really sharp energy, sharp and clear, because his full and empty were really well distinguished. Whereas a lot of his students, it just felt muddy, you know, when they pushed you or when they just stood in front of you, because they didn't really have that separation properly. It wasn't clear. They weren't sure in their own mind. So I pull. It's like the heel doesn't want to let me go. That heel doesn't want to release me. So I really have to pull. Ooh. Yeah, so there's two parts of my foot. One part that keeps me still, the heel, and one part that pulls me and moves me, the front of the foot. But it's the same with the mind. There's two parts of my mind. One part that's trying to stay in constant motion, and one part that's just trying to settle. And so the part that's in constant motion, that would be with your spirit, if you like. And then the other part would be with your body, your inert body. And that's represented, if you like, by the heavy sacrum. Ooh. And so I pull with the toes, which are my fingers, if you like. And then as I settle into the foot, it's the heel of my foot that becomes supported. So you tend to find yourself just doing exactly the same thing with the hand. It's my toes that are pulling, and then the heel that I settle into. So pulling and settle. Pulling and settle. Okay, now let's just go back into riding horse. Now let's have a sort of narrower one. But that same feeling of space between the legs. Okay, so let's just try a bit of Qigong. Give the legs a bit of a rest. So feel your three centers, your three dantians, belly, heart, and head. And feel the backs of them. The backs of them, if anything, are more important. So your min meng here, your back heart here, and then your occiput, so where the spine inserts into the skull. So you want to feel this movement coming from a spread out of those points. Yeah, and what you'd like is that feeling that as soon as you start this exercise, you sort of slot into energy. You sort of sink into your energy. It's quite different than doing Tai Chi, because this has nothing to do with yielding. This is just breath, really. This is Qi. This is your breathing, the energy of your breath. So as soon as you start doing the form, you should have a similar feeling that you're just slotting into something, slotting into energy. But that has much more to do with the lineage, with the connection that you have with John and with the old masters, and just with yielding. It's not just you any longer. Yeah, so each of these back dantians, we're just trying to really relax them and let them sort of expand. So this one opens and expands into the legs. This one opens and expands into the arms. And this one opens and expands into like two tentacles that come around here. And the difficult one is always the legs, because we're having to support ourselves from these as well. So you're just wanting to coordinate your breathing. Yeah, so as you continue and the mind quietens and you start really feeling the continuity, mind continuous, this sense that there's no break caused by your mind wandering, then you feel the breathing much more strongly. And you start feeling the action in the belly and the lower back. So that's the motor. So here the belly's pulling in a little bit, and then here the back is contracting to get the hands to expand out. Yeah. So all of these things, we have to take it really slowly and just let it build up. Because if you just suddenly start pulling and doing this, then it's quite different than if it's sort of appeared by itself out of your practice. So we don't really, we don't want to use force. We want it to appear out of the energy. All the time, heavy sacrum. Okay. And now let's just give it a bit of circularity. So like you're making two circles now, as well as bringing the hands in like this, you're circling them. And again, we just want that to be sort of a natural thing. And just feel how it changes the mind, just that slightly different visualization. There's like an air of optimism. Ooh, you're reaching for someone and you're drawing them in. So now you've got a subtle, gentle, yielding component, as well as a pumping action between the hands. So I reach and I just draw someone in or something. Yeah, so there's a sense that it's no longer just you. So now you're really interacting with the space, as well as just pumping your own energy. And then just exactly the same thing, but just let it slip a bit more onto the vertical plane. And again, just feel how it changes the mind. Yeah? So reaching up with the hands here is quite different than reaching forwards with the hands. It's almost more frightening, more daunting. So now you're making an invitation to something that's above you. You're gesturing for something to come down into you from above. I always think of Mo Salah. You know, when he prays before the match, before the football match, you know, he plays for Liverpool, he's Egyptian, Muslim. Yeah, so he just lifts his hands like this and just looks, you know, and says a prayer, and it's beautiful. You know, you can imagine like a cloud of brightness above your head. And you're just gesturing to encourage some energy to slip down from it through you. And if you look up at it, it will disappear. So you have to be really subtle. Yeah, so one of the real difficulties is just becoming sort of transparent or porous. So there's a sense that something can flow from outside into you and through you, the same way something from the ground flows up my legs. I really want to be able to let things into my body, into my energy. Because we normally think in terms of our body as being like a private space. You know, it's full of my own thoughts and my own feelings. But we just want it to be a channel. Yeah, so this energy from the cloud is channeling through me down, and the energy from the earth is channeling up me. And for that, you need a really light, positive mind. It's what Pat, in that poem that Pat sent me yesterday, is what she calls forgiveness. Yeah. Yeah, so like no grudges. We don't realize it, but most of the time we're sort of complaining and just keeping the world out spitefully. That's the function of the ego. Wow. Okay, now let's just let it slip back onto the simple. Okay. So now let's just bring the feet closer up, give them a bit of a rest. And now let's just work the feet a little bit. So just pushing the heel up, trying to keep the weight pretty much in the middle. So you don't bring the weight out of the foot. So what we're trying to do is just exercise the calf muscle and the foot, the muscles in the foot. Yeah. But again, really feel the heel. So this foot, I'm really digging down with the heel. So if anything, you can pull the toes of that foot up and then pull the heel of the other foot up. So there's like a rocking action. It's quite difficult on your balance. Yeah, so heel down, heel up, heel down, heel up. And just trying not to let this action bring your sacrum up. So your sacrum is still flowing down your leg or down the space between your legs, if you like, because I'm trying to keep in the middle. You. Yeah, so the heel is coming up and the knee is coming up. And the sacrum is trying to stay flowing down. This is what's difficult. So there's almost a sense that your back is flowing down and something at your front is coming up. So there's like a bit of a separation between front and back. And then just jogging on the spot, very loose, very light. Feel the head weaving from side to side. Again, just feel the inertia of the body, its reluctance to move. It's wanting to grind to a halt all the time. And your spirit is having to be quite active just to keep this going. So those vertebrae in the lumbar spine, which are normally being compressed all the time by your legs pushing up and gravity pulling you down, we're just trying to stretch those out with this visualization of the heavy sacrum. And if anything, this action of the feet helps that settling, helps that lengthening. It doesn't crunch it up. You just have to keep it going for quite a while to get it really relaxed. Yeah, so in one sense, the longer you go on, the more naked you become. It's like these layers of tension are just falling off you. But in another sense, you become clothed in energy. So you're getting rounder because more and more layers of energy are coating you with the repetitions. So physically, you're more naked, but energetically, you're more swathed, if you like. Wow. Okay, and now let's just bring it back to our trusty riding horse. So it's just full and empty, really. We've been looking at that, by moving. Okay, and now let's just try and feel the cross energy. Yeah. So just Remember, we're pulling with the toes. And then as you sink into the heel, you feel the ground creeping up the bone of the leg until it hits the sacrum. And then just allow that to come up and express in the opposite hand. Yeah. And just feel the air of optimism and acceptance that you need to allow it through your body. So the difficulty is that, with sinking, we tend to think of sinking as like a sort of a heavy labor. So it's like, ooh, it's this. And that will tend to go against the cross energy coming up. Yeah, so I'm pulling across with my toes. And now from the heel, something grows up the leg, ooh, and then up and across into the opposite hand. So that needs a real lift in me to encourage it up. And then I just pull with this foot. And then as I settle into the heel, something creeps up my leg. John used to say it's like an infection. And will come up and express in the opposite hand if you let it. And then I pull with this foot. And it's as I settle into the heel that the ground comes up and across. And then I pull with this foot. And then as I settle into the heel, something comes up the leg, across the hip into the sacrum, and then up this side of your spine really, and then it jumps across the shoulder blade and down and out of the hand. And to get that, it's not this, there has to be a kick upwards of your thymus. And then I pull with these toes, and then as I settle into this heel, you can sort of wriggle it up. You can sort of work a channel through your body. In fact, you have to, just to create the pathway. It's more just feeling the mind, the quality of the mind that's required to let this energy come up and out. It's so different from the quality of the mind that we normally sync with. So here something wriggles up and expresses in the opposite hand. And then I pull here with the toes and the fingers. And as I sink into the heel, there's a real sense of something going out in order to come in. Yeah, that's the knee. That's my knee going out and bending that whips the energy up like this and then out here. Yeah. And then sinking into this heel and pull, heel, the heel kicks here and then whips in and up and out into the hand. Pulling, sinking, goes out, up, and here. And ooh. And if you can't feel it, then you just imagine it. This is what human beings are very good at. You can tell them something and then they can imagine it, even though they can't do it yet, they can imagine it. And that is the first stage to actually learning how to do it. So if something comes up, and you see, if you allowed that upness to sort of bring you up, then the energy wouldn't flow through the body, it would just move the body. So this is what's difficult really, is getting energy to pass through. It's quite easy to get energy to move you, where your body and the energy is moving together. But to get the energy to actually move against the body in a way by passing through it. And heel. It's quite frightening. sinking into the heel, and something works its way up. And all the time, it's this heavy, dangling sacrum that just allows it all to happen. Out. And then I just pull here, sinking into the heel, and just allow. Yeah, so this is just the form. This is happening in the form every step. We'll do a little bit in a minute. So pulling, sinking into the heel, and something comes up and out. So I have to make sure I don't let the body move until the energy is expressing. Otherwise, the movement of the body will pull the energy back, if you like. So here, and then I can let the body flow with it. So pulling with the toes, sinking into the heel, something rises up and passes through me. Wow. Okay. And now let's just stand in riding horse. Yeah, so as you're standing, the toes are sort of trying to pull you down. So the way we were using the toes to move ourselves, so when you're standing in riding horse, you're basically doing the same with each foot together. So you're trying to pull yourself down with the toes like this, and at the same time, you're injecting the heels in. So you reach a balance between the down from the toes and the up from the heels. Okay, now just put a little bit more weight in one of your feet, almost like you just lean across a little bit, and just let the legs slightly bend. And now just feel the two energies. So you've got this side of the body is obviously now supporting you more than the other side. So just feel this arm that's on the same side of the body as where you put your weight, just almost setting. It's like it becomes solid. But then from the heel, you've got this real lightness and energy that's coming into the opposite hand. So the two arms, although they look the same, they feel very different. This is stable. You know, if a child could sort of yank themselves up from your arm, it's so strong. And this is completely loose and fluid. And then just move across into this foot. And just now feel this arm becoming solid like the leg. And feel the heel injecting up through the body into the opposite hand. And then just flow back the other way. So this is like real full and empty. So it's not a matter of really where your weight is, it's the quality. It's the quality in the body. So this is now full, and it's almost like a liquid that's become set. And this is like a liquid, solid that is melted. So it's got all this movement and fluidity in it. And then I can just move across here a little bit. and then here. And you can feel that the mind, it wants to ally itself with the heavy side, and it wants to leave the light side alone, knowing that if it gives it too much attention, it will just ruin it. Yeah, so here's like I turn towards the solidity, the reliability. Ooh. Okay, and now just back to the middle again. So, so the feeling is you've got this sort of snake, like a python of energy inside your body that's slipping and sliding around. And you're having to work quite hard just to keep this image of stillness, because inside you, it's wanting to shift side to side. It's wanting to go into the heel. It's wanting to pull into the toes. So all these activities are they're there, but they're just not expressing themselves fully. Okay, let's just let it come into this. So you allow a little bit of movement. That's great. Okay. And now let's just try just going backwards and forwards. You know, that the Qigong exercise that everyone really likes, this one. Yeah, the reason everyone likes it is because there's a truth in it. Yeah. So here I'm pulling the toes, pulling myself forwards, and then as I settle into the heel, something grows up my body and expresses in the opposite hand. So it's natural here. And then this foot pulls, the leg bends, yields, and then as I settle into the heel, something grows up the body and out of the opposite hand. Yeah, so the attack, the cross energy, is basically like a straightness that comes out of the bentness of the leg. And then that straightness just bends and starts the next yield. And then out of the heel, something comes up and across into the opposite hand. Ooh. Ooh. So just trying your best to keep the joints of the leg loosish. Yeah, don't be too sure about your visualization. You should be noticing things all the time. So your visualization is being enriched by the activity, by the doing. Ooh. Ooh. And then just swapping over into the other leg. Yeah, the cross energy is so strong that there's a tendency to lose the front of the foot, because you don't really need it, because you can just allow the cross energy to bounce you back. But we want to just keep the front of the foot working. So remember, Tai Chi is the art of concealing hardness with softness. So the hardness is the heel, expressing energetically in the opposite side of the body, and the softness is just the front of the foot. Just adding all these layers of cotton wool. Okay. So let's just bring it back. Okay, now let's just try just a little bit of the form. So maybe up to, ward off left, ward off right. Just to feel that cross energy, to feel the front of the foot, the heel, and the cross energy. So the head dangling, but also you want this movement, potentially. The sacrum pulling down, stretching the lower vertebra apart. Legs straight, but about to bend. Ice about to melt. And now just feel the lift of the knee. Let the knee lift up and just let that swing you round into this foot. And then you can feel the heel. The heel just appears and just wants to express in the knee and in the hand. Okay, let's just try the other side. Just put your mind in the knee. Imagine the puppet man just teasing the knee up in order for the heel to come off the ground. Just feel yourself slipping into this and just feel the energy coming up. Yeah. So, yeah, so the energy for the knee to come up, if you like, it's coming from the sinking, but we have to pull the knee up first. It's a strange business. Because if I just sink down like this, it's difficult to get this to stretch. Yeah, so I have to melt into the leg. And this knee. And I just visualize, what's his name up there? And I just... And then you just step. Don't put the heel down yet, just put the toes down. And then you just pull yourself with the toes. And as you sink into this heel, the cross energy expresses in this hand. Yeah. So now here, so this knee comes up. You slide into this heel. The energy comes flooding into this side of the body, which allows it to step. It's got some impetus now to step. And then I use that cross energy to pull, to just yank with the toes, pull myself across. And then as I settle into this heel, cross energy expresses here. And I just use that gently to bring the leg up. I could equally just fly out that way, but for the sake of the form. Okay, so now this knee comes up. I settle down into this heel. That allows this side of my body to become energized and allows it to step out. And then instead of using that energy to hit someone, in which case it would straighten and whip out of me, I curl it and it pulls me across. And then as I settle into this heel, energy expresses here, and I just bend that as well. Wow. Okay, let's try again. So this knee comes up and I lengthen down the leg. Energy's all here, this side of my body. And then I just bend that, I pull. I do this with my toes and and then as I settle into that heel, energy expresses here. And I just bring that up. So 1, and 2, and something expresses here from this heel, and I bring that up. And then this is just bringing the energy up the person, across and down your own body. This is more like the chi, more like the energy of this sort of exercise. It's got that sort of slow, lingering, whereas the spirit is quite fizzy, very active. Yeah? And then you just turn here. Whoa. And here's now put the toes down first. So let's forget about putting the heel down first. The toes down. And then I just allow the toes just to bend. And as I settle into this heel, the energy expresses here, which allows me to step out with it. And then I just let the energy curl a bit to pull me across. And then as I settle into this heel, the energy expresses here. And then ward off right. So you just open and bring it in. This is now energized from this heel. Step, just let the toes curl, let the energy curl up a bit. Pull yourself across, settling into this heel, which is this hand, the back hand. So the back hand is active in ward off right. Okay, let's try to the side. Okay, so the knee up. I think why that's important, of like starting with the knee coming up rather than starting with this, is because sinking is just a bit heavy and it gets it's sort of slow. We want the spirit to be everywhere. So it's best to start with it. This is what it says in the classics. So the spirit expresses, the knee comes up and I slip down into this heel, and then everything's active here. I pull there, and then as I settle into this heel, something expresses here. And then I just allow this up, and down. So remember, this is the active hand now because my weight is in this heel. Yeah? And then you just turn with it. So, and then catch with the toes and fingers if you like, and pull yourself across. Heel goes down, the energy comes up here and into this arm. Yeah. And then I just step this arm and this leg. Yeah. So I just step with that and I flow across. And then as I sink into this heel, which requires this sort of heavy sacrum, the energy comes into this hand, which is pulling down. You're yanking someone and getting a whiplash into their neck. remember. So now I'm 70% here, and now I just go 100%, but I have to do this. You don't want to just do this. Yeah, so you expand and you yield. So now from this heel into, so this whole side of my body is active. Yeah. So I just step with it, pull across. As I settle into this heel, the energy flows up into this side. And now this is the active hand. So it's all the way through the form. Yeah. So you can just, and it's that question that Karina asked, was it last week or the week before? Yeah. You know, if the toes are so important, why do we step with the heel down first? And in a way we don't, because if you remember the instruction that when you step forwards, you point the toes, you grope with your toes, and then your heel appears out of that. Yeah. So it's like you've swathed it in this cotton wool, which is your toes kissing the ground gently. And then out of that, very carefully, you just lower the heel, which is exactly what we've been doing. Yeah. So you can just step with the toes all the way through the form and then just let the heel come out of the toes, appear behind them. Okay, so let's just finish now. Yeah, so whenever we do something, it tends to pull us out into our front, into the doing, into the space in front of us where our senses are picking up things. So when we come back to like riding horse or back to meditation or just back to stillness, there's a sense that you're slipping back into your back, and your back is embracing you. You're being embraced by your own back, by your own energy from behind. And that's all riding horse is really. And that happens from the back of the dantians, especially here. This is the difficult one. Because it's your legs are having to hold you up. Okay, now let's just bring it back to here, and then just come up and just, it's like a prayer posture. Yeah, so it's like your humility and your sinking is sort of doing this. You've got this sort of circuit going, you're sort of groveling. Yeah, you're getting lower, getting more depressed. But then within that, there's this lift to God, which is this way, very much this way. Yeah. But if you were to just to do this, it would just be an arrogance, yeah? And so you need this disguise, if you like, this disguise of softness and humility. But within that, there has to be this lift. And you can, you know, it's like this or this. This is exactly the same, really, just a different mudra, just different shape. I love, like, you know, you see the really old monks, and they become so stooped and frail, and that there's this real sense that the more stooped and the more frail they become, the stronger the actual lift through them to what's above them. So it's getting the body down, but that is lifting the spirit. Wow. Just think of Mo Salah. Think how handsome he is. Okay, and then just let's bring it in, down, and just back to a proper attention posture. So really slim and slender. Feel the line pulling up through you and just feel yourself melting down. So there's a real balance between your melting body and your completely positive, optimistic, rising spirit. As John would say, without that, you're a blot on the landscape. Okay, so let's call it a day.